We're going to now complete the assembly of the clutch basket to the engine. Again, drive gear is in place. One thing I didn't mention a moment ago is that on this clutch basket itself, I did take a flat file and just touched up these edges right here. You can see that's where these fingers of the fiber plates will align with, and sometimes those fingers on the fiber plates will start to wear grooves in the sides of these fingers, and in this particular basket they haven't, but I did take that flat file and just wipe the edges, make sure there's no sharpness to them, and then clean it off with brake cleaner. The other thing you'll notice is my hands are clean. If you've been with me before in some of my previous videos, you heard me talk about cleanliness. I like to have very clean hands when I do the final assembly of an engine. I know some guys don't seem to be concerned about that. They just go ahead in with nice, greasy, dirty hands. It's kind of not my thing. More power to them if that works for them, but it doesn't for me. So the hands are nice and clean. What we need to do now is align this gear I'm pointing to with my right index finger with this drive pinion, and at the same time align these spline cutouts right here on the back of the clutch basket with the splines on the end of the input shaft. So what we need to do is, well, that just actually dropped right into place. That was easy enough. That was not set up that way or staged, folks. It just came together that way. Sometimes you have to rotate these things a little bit to get them to drop into place. Next, we're going to take this spline washer. It's really, I think, a thrust washer. Honda calls it a spline washer. And again, you've got to line the splines appropriately to get it to drop into place like that. And then once it's in place, it will just rotate like that. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this inner plate and drop it over the top. And you can see it nests over that thrust washer, that spline washer inside of there. We'll take this section and we're going to now add the clutch plates. Now there are a couple ways to go about this. You might have a different approach than mine. That's perfectly fine, of course, but the way I prefer to do it is mount the clutch plates on this piece and then invert the assembly, align everything, and drop it into place. Again, that can be a little bit fiddly. So what we're going to do is I'm going to start with fiber, steel, fiber, steel, etc. If I can get that aligned, there we go. There you can see the clutch assembly. These fingers right here need to be aligned. And by the way, what you see, that material on the end of those fingers right here is adhesive used to bond this assembly together when clutch plates are made, so don't worry about that, or don't be concerned about that. But you can see how I've got these fingers all aligned in a row. Now the key is we've got to get everything just right to fit. So this inner spline right here has to line up with the input splines, and these fingers have to line up with this, and we have to kind of get everything just so. So again, I'm going to try to keep my head out of the way, and these four, 1, 2, 3, 4, those fingers that point up like this have to align as well, as you can see right there. Got to get it just right with that inner spline. There we should be real close right there, I think. And it's down. And it's got to be down far enough that I can get this snap ring over, and you'll know when it's down, like there. Now I'm going to take the snap ring that fits over a groove down in over the cut into the end of this shaft right here. And you're just using a snap ring pliers. We're going to put that in place. Just make sure it's in the groove, and it is. Now all we have left to do with the clutch is install the 4 springs, like that, and this pressure plate assembly, lifter plate. We'll go something like that. And then we have the 4 washers and bolts. Now I'm not going to put anti-seize on these bolts because they're going to be coated with oil anyway. During their life they'll be immersed in oil, so because this is a wet clutch. I'm just going to finger tighten those for now, and then we're going to torque them down. Now the torque setting for these, according to Honda, right here, is 5.8 to 8.7 foot-pounds. So I'm going to go ahead here and set up my torque wrench, and I'll be right back. I've done an initial torque to 40 inch-pounds. I'm going to do a finished torque of approximately 70 inch-pounds. The minimum torque, which is 5.8 foot-pounds, equates to 69.6 inch-pounds. Remember, you have to multiply times 12 because you're converting from foot-pounds to inch-pounds. So my minimum torque needs to be about 70 inch-pounds, which is what I'm going to torque these to. When I work on my older equipment like this, I normally work to the minimum specified torque that the manufacturer recommends. In this case, it'd be about 70 inch-pounds. I have done an initial torque to 40, and I'm going to work my way up to 70. I'm going to lock the connecting rod. You can see here at the top, I think. A couple of ways you can do that. And the reason I'm going to lock that connecting rod is this is going to want to turn like this as I apply torque. Again, there's a couple of ways to do it. You can wedge coins or a rag, shop rag, in between the gears here. What I often do is I just take a screwdriver, a big heavy screwdriver that will fit through this connecting rod with a piece of vinyl tubing stretched over it. And I put that through like that and just tighten it down so that I'm essentially locking the mechanism so everything can't turn, and the vinyl tubing protects the top of the engine case. So now this assembly won't turn. So I've got to turn my torque wrench up to 70. Which is right there. Now we're just going to go ahead and we'll do a little cross pattern work here. And go all the way around and double check them all. And the clutch is now installed, and the plates are all nice and tight in there, as you would expect. Go ahead and take that out. And I think we got that part of it done. Now we need to move on, and we're going to install this oil cup, part of the oil filter system, which will go on right here, along with the locking nut and bell-shaped washer to hold that assembly in place. We'll go ahead now and install the oil rotor. That's this right here. and the associated components go with it. This also is key to tie into this spline right here. So we just need to rotate that until we get it to drop in place. Like that. Then we need to install the lock washer and lock nut. These are both new parts. I think the nut is still available from Honda. I'm not sure about the washer. You will note on this washer though that it is convex. And it says, I don't know if you can see that right there, it says outside. So outside would be in this case facing up. So this fits down like that. And then just this locking nut fits down over the end of the threaded crankshaft. Come on. And see if we can't. There we go. Remember, this is a tool I had bought when I removed this assembly. I'll just tighten that down. And you also note I've got my connecting rod stopper here in place, the screwdriver, because I'm going to turn this, and that's going to want to turn this whole assembly. Now the torque on this locking nut right here is 29 to 36 foot-pounds. So again, I'll go to the minimum, or 29, but first what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to 20 and get a feel for how that works. My torque wrench, I'll switch to a bigger torque wrench now. So I'm going to go up to 20 first. Okay, that's 20. We'll reset to 29, which is the minimum. No, you can't see that. Here we go. 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, right there. That's 29 foot-pounds. And I expect now it's going to get a little tougher. Make sure everything is well secured. I have to try to hold this assembly without getting my head in the way. There we go. 29 foot-pounds. Don't forget to take the torque off, the force off the torque wrench when you're done with it. Otherwise you can press the spring. So that's torqued. Now what we need to do is install the cap assembly. You can see that there is a gasket right there. So I'm going to put a little bit of anti-seize on that gasket. It's going to make my hands a little dirty. That's okay. Spread that around both sides of the gasket. And then work it in with my fingers. It'll make the gasket a whole lot easier to get off later on if need arises to open this back up. Don't want to overdo it with the anti-seize, just a nice consistent coating all the way around. Then it'll fit like that, or it might be easier just to put it inside of the cover first. Like that. This was pre-assembled, this piece right here with the spring. I think I mentioned it earlier. And now we just line everything up. I have 3 new screws from Honda. These are still available. We'll put a little anti-seize on those. And we'll finish up the assembly of this oil rotor. And just snug these up. You don't need to overdo it. There is no torque specification for these. Again, using a JIS, Japanese Industrial Standard screwdriver. And we got that complete. So now we have this. Essentially, this side of the engine is done. That is, the right side is complete. And this is the way it would rotate, by the way. Like this. This is the way it would rotate. There you go. Next, we're going to go ahead. I think I'm going to install the cylinder and cylinder head and cam chain. Normally, I prefer to do that after I've installed the engine in the bike, in the frame, just to save on having to manhandle that extra weight. At least when I do 2 strokes, that's the way I typically would do it. I think on this little 4-stroke, I'm going to go ahead and install the cylinder head piston rings on the bench because it's a little finicky with getting the cam timing just right. It's a lot easier for me to see right up here on the bench. It'll make it a little more awkward to install it in the frame, but it's worth it to me to be able to have easy access to all sides of it up here on the bench. So that'll be the next video. I'm going to call this one a wrap. This part of the video anyway, this part of the installation, it's going to be a wrap. We'll pick it up on the other side as I'm working on the cylinder and cylinder head and piston. Any issues, questions, thoughts, feel free to drop me a note. Otherwise, as usual, thanks for watching.